Welcome to Spenelli Speaks. If you're new here, I hope you stick around. Today I'm going to be doing my December wrap-up video. So I'm real excited. I ended up reading 7 books in December, which first and foremost, that's crazy. I have to take a moment and thank the BookTube community because I never thought when I started this in November, so I've been doing this for 2 full months, that I would ever read 7 books, and I think last month I read 8 books in 1 month. Typically, I would read 1 to maybe 2 books every month, depending on if I was in school or not. But, I mean, to have read 7 books this month, I mean, you gotta stop and think about that. I know for some of you out there, you're probably like, oh, I read 12, I read 15, I read 20. But for me, working full time, having a family, having 2 dogs, having all the other stuff going on in life, for me to have read 7 books this month, I'm pretty impressed with myself. So I'll pat myself on the back a little bit. So today I'm going to do my December wrap-up, talk a little bit about the books that I've read. I did do single reviews for some of these books, so I'll link those above so that you can watch those if you'd like to watch those by themselves. And then I did not do some for a few of them that I finished towards the end of the month. So I'll give a little bit more in-depth review on those ones as I get to those. So the way I typically rate books is on the Goodreads rating, so that's anywhere from a 1-star to a 5-star review, 5 being the best. And this month I had 2 5-star reviews, so that's great. I had a couple of 4, 3s, and then 2 2s, which I don't typically do any 1s unless I really just could not stand the book and I wouldn't ever recommend it to another person. So I very rarely have 1s. So what I'll do, as I did in my last wrap-up videos, I typically will start with my least favorite books and then go to my favorite books. And last month what I did too is I talked about books that I didn't finish, which there's still only 1 book that I did not finish this month, which is that Good Neighbor, the life and work of Fred Rogers. I have been trying to listen to that on audiobook, and I also picked it up from the library thinking because I'm not an audio learner, I'm not doing well with the audiobook, I'll just sit down and read it. I just couldn't get it. I was not into having to sit down and read that book. I wanted to read all of my Christmas books. I did finish all of my books on my TBR other than The Good Neighbor, which I'm still just going to continue to listen to because it is a very good book. I can't say that I would want to finish that in one sitting. I am enjoying the content. I'm enjoying learning about the process that Fred Rogers took to become Mr. Roger and Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. So for me, I would like to finish that. I don't believe in DNFing many books. I want to add that to my goals for this next year because I do think that I should DNF at some points. But for me, I'm like a stickler. I believe that it's got to get better in the end. So I'm going to be trying to be better on that. But regardless of that, I am going to go ahead and show you what I read this past month. And in order of my least favorite to favorite, and the first being Dashing Through the Snow by Debbie Macomber. I did a review video for this, so I will link that above if you're interested in watching that. I kind of go through in more depth of what I thought about this book. I did give this a 2-star rating. I felt it was very unrealistic. I thought the characters were really flat and altogether just wasn't very pleased with the storyline. I really just didn't like it. I wouldn't give it a 1. I wouldn't say it was terrible. It wasn't something that I wanted to throw across the room or anything, but it just wasn't something that I was very much enjoying the entire time I was reading. I kind of just tried to get through it, and yeah, so that was Dashing Through the Snow. The next book that I also have its own review video for, so I'll link that above as well, is Heather Woodhaven's The Christmas with Book Club. In my video that I kind of explained in more depth, this storyline was just hard for me to read because this is like a sequel to another book of hers, which I wasn't aware of when I picked this book up. You know, there's really no indication anywhere on this that it is part of a series up until, you know, you're reading it and you are getting little pieces of there must have been something before. So when I looked it up on Goodreads, I did see that it was part of a different series. So I was kind of disappointed in that because had I known that it was part of something else, I probably wouldn't have read it because I hadn't read the first one. And beside that, the storyline I just didn't care for. I didn't think it was realistic. And just like the last one, if I don't think something feels realistic, even in like fantasy or in anything that, you know, it's meant to be out of this world, it still has to make sense to the storyline. This I didn't feel like was there. I felt it was lacking. I felt the story was unevenly paced. I felt like there were 6 too many characters. And like I said, I did a full review on this, so I'll go ahead and link that up before. But I gave this a 2-star rating. The next book, which I also have a video for, so I'll link that above. And this one I gave 3 stars. This was 12 Days of Christmas, excuse me. So 12 Days of Christmas. I enjoyed this. I thought it was very cute. I liked that out of all of the books that I read, all of the books that I read from Debbie Macomber, it was the most Christmassy. The other books you really could probably read at any time of the year and still relate to it, and it just happens to be during the Christmas season. This particular book really dives into Christmas. It really kind of explores Christmas. It's full on 12 Days of Christmas, all about community, about giving, about being a giver. So for this, it was the most Christmassy of the books. I did give it 3 stars just because I felt like the characters were very flat. I didn't feel like I could relate to them because I didn't feel like I really learned too much about them. That wasn't, you know, they were really just face value. They didn't really give you a lot of, you know, character driven, you know, anything to go on. It just seemed very flat. So I did give that 3 stars. I did enjoy the story. I thought it was very cute, but overall wasn't like psyched to read it again. The last book that I do have its own review for, I liked very much, which was Alaskan Holiday. This story was very, very cute. I have the link above so you can see the full review, but this was a darling story. What I really liked about this one is that it didn't have you start the story like all the others where you just meet the, you know, man and woman or the love interest and then you follow them along. We actually dive into the story after they've already met. They've already kind of had a courtship. They already, you know, have that instinctive pull towards one another. But we actually follow their story after they have to leave one another and see if they can find each other again. So for me, this one was darling. I love this book. I just gave it 4 stars as it didn't like psych me. Like usually 5 stars you have to really like be in my face, which that's a weird way to describe that, but that's just how I say it. So I really did like this. I have a full review on that if you'd like. Very, very good. I'll link that above. The next book that I gave 4 stars to was Merry and Bright. This was one of the last books that I finished this month. I really liked this story. It was so cute. I felt like it really was relatable for people in this day and age for dating. So Merry and Bright is by Debbie Macomber, and it is about a couple. A woman named Mary and a man named Jason, and his last name is Bright, so that's how we get the Merry and Bright. And they work at the same company. Jason is the VP, so he's technically Mary's boss, and Mary is a temp. She's a data entry clerk in the office. And as part of Christmas, Mary's mother and brother, who is special needs, I believe, in the story, he has Downs, and they create a online profile for Mary unbeknownst to her, and they use the picture of their dog Bogey as her online profile picture. And then when we are reading about the Jason character, he has a cousin who is going to be married, and they had this oath that they were never going to marry because their parents had such an awful go at it, and his cousin ends up calling him and saying he's getting married. So it kind of gets Jason thinking about it, and his cousin had met his future wife on this dating site. So he jumps on there and he sees Mary's profile with the dog, and he thought it was kind of interesting, and him being such a high profile person thought to himself, well, that would be an interesting way to meet people and not for them to go after my looks or my money or anything like that. So they end up finding each other based on the fact that they both have dogs as their profile picture. And so you kind of follow them and their courtship via online. And it's very cute. They get to know each other. And then in the very first time that they're supposed to meet, and this is kind of a spoiler, but not so much, Mary recognizes him, obviously, and then doesn't go through with it. So then they're kind of communicating, and she's like, no, I'm sorry, I don't think this is going to work out. And from there, we kind of follow along to see where does it go? Will they meet again? How will they, find one another? And, when she's right under his nose kind of thing. So it was so cute. I felt like it was something that would totally happen in this day and age, because you just never know, who's out there and all of that. And I really enjoyed how, getting to know each other on a deeper level was so important to both of them. And I thought that was a really great message, because I think a lot of people today, especially in the dating world, they forget that, if you want to spend the rest of your life with somebody, it's much more than just, what's on the surface. You have to really dive in and find out who people are on the inside, because ultimately, if you're going to spend the rest of your life with somebody, you're going to spend the rest of your life with the person that's inside. So I really, really liked that. I thought it was a great message. I did give it a 4. Again, I very rarely give 5s unless it's like a wow factor. So I did give this one a 4. I would say even pushing into the 4.5, but really, really enjoyed that one. So that was Debbie Macomber's Merry and Bright. And now to my 5-star reviews. I really liked these books. In all of my other videos, you probably heard me talk about this one, but Skipping Christmas. I cannot say enough good stuff about this book. I love it so much. It is such a tiny read. I think this is going to be one of my every Christmas reads. I love this book. So if you have not read John Grisham's Skipping Christmas, it is hilarious. So it follows a couple, the Cranks, which is a great name for this character, but their daughter Blair has gone off to the Peace Corps, and she is in Peru on assignment there, and she's going to be missing Christmas for the very first time. And so Mr. Crank, he has decided that he's going to skip Christmas. He did the math. He's an accountant, so he did the math, and the previous Christmas, they had spent over $6,000 on Christmas. So invitations, Christmas cards, wreaths, donations, all of the food, all of the gifts, anything for Christmas relation. He spent over $6,000. So he's like, no, we're skipping Christmas. We're not doing any of it. We're going to go on a cruise. So he talks his wife into this, and through this, a ton of hilarious little escapades happen, because they live on a street, and if you can see in the art here, everyone else is all decorated. Well, he lives on a street that takes it very seriously. They're a community, and they get awards on, the whole block being, decorated so wonderfully. So there's a lot of little things that happen that are just really hilarious. And then, I'm not going to give it away, but something happens where, oh my gosh, all hands on deck, Christmas needs to happen. So, very hilarious book. They made it into a movie called Christmas with the Cranks, which is hilarious. I love that movie as well. It's definitely one that you want to read the book and then take a look at the movie. I think they did a great job. They even literally use lines from the book to put into the movie, which I love when they do that, because it really shows that the adaptation, the writers really took the time to read the book and insert pieces of the book into the movie. And I think that's just wonderful. I don't know why more movies don't do that. I mean, that's for readers. The whole point of seeing this movie is to see what they did to your book. And when you don't even use lines that the original creator, the original author used to create these characters, it just, to me, seems like gross misconduct. So love this book. Give it a 5. Definitely reading it in the future. One thing I did notice in reading this book that I don't think I've ever noticed before is the amount of times that Mr. Crank, and I can't remember his first name for some reason, Luther, like references women, like in a weird way. Like, so he's going on a cruise, and on at least 3 or 4 occasions, he's talking about scantily clad women. And I'm just like, whoa, I don't remember that from the first time. And I think in the first time when you're reading, you're just going through the motions and you're just reading the book and you're like, yeah, because he's going on a cruise. But in this time, it was kind of in different areas where I was like, whatever, jerk, like, stop talking about that. So I thought that was really weird, but regardless, I really love the book, so. And my last and final read of December, which I gave a 5-star review, and it was my favorite book of all the books that I read this December, was Dashing Through the Snow with Mary Higgins Clark and Carol Higgins Clark. I could not stop smiling when I was reading this book, and I couldn't stop reading it. I read this book in one sitting. I sat down after dinner and literally could not stop reading because I had to find out what was going to happen. And I had to keep telling myself, like, this is a Christmas book. It's going to have a happy ending. It'll be okay. Because things would keep happening and I would start to like freak out, like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? So what happens in the very beginning is there are some people who work at a local grocer, and they're like the key employees, and there's like, I believe there's 5 of them, and they are expecting a Christmas bonus, but their boss, who has married this nasty woman who they call the skunk, forgoes their Christmas bonus, obviously the skunk's idea, and gives them a photograph of their wedding, and it was like not good. So they're all very disappointed. Well, that very same night, they win the lottery for a lot of money. Excuse me. And one of the key employees, Duncan, had, for one reason or another, decided not to play that day. And we find out later that it's because he was taking these classes with these investors who were teaching about money and all this kind of thing. And they were like, oh, don't waste your money on the lottery, yada, yada, yada. And he was trying to save up money for a ring for his girlfriend to ask her to marry him. So he took their advice and didn't play. Well, unbeknownst to him, because he's a little naive, these were scam artists who were taking his money essentially in the amount of $5,000 that was all in his savings. And also because he told them the numbers that he plays for the lottery, used his numbers to play that same exact lottery. And then so there were 2 winners, the key employees of the grocer and then these 2 scam artists. Needless to say, Duncan goes and tries to talk to them, not knowing that they're scam artists, saying he wants his $5,000 back because he didn't get his bonus and he wants to be able to buy this ring, and overhears them talking about how they are scammers and how they think he's an idiot because they stole his lottery number and then won, and then he falls down the stairs and breaks his leg when he's trying to escape when they're coming his way. They don't know that, and that's about all the spoilers I'm giving because the rest of the book is nuts. There are characters that are introduced in this story that must be from other books from these authors, because I was so excited about like little things that they would say that clearly these other characters it had happened to them already, that I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to go and find these other books. I'm guessing it's from Carol Higgins Clark because I think she's more of a mystery writer. I'm not sure. I've never read anything from them, but in reading this book, I was like, my jaw hurts. I'm smiling so much. I mean, I was so like, whoa, what happened somewhere else? Who got kidnapped? Who was in a trunk? Who got stuck in the bottom of a boat? Like, they kept like referencing other books, and I was like, oh my gosh, I have to read these books because it just sounds fascinating. And all of these characters were just so great. And like I said, your heart's pumping the whole time because you're just anticipating like, what's gonna happen? Is it gonna be good? And like, okay, Janny, it's a Christmas book. It's going to be okay. Everyone will have a happy ending. And boy, sure did they. Oh, it was so good. So 5 stars. I'd give it 10 if I could. I really, really liked this book. I would highly recommend. So if you're picking one up, Dashing Through the Snow, so, so good. So those are all the books I read in December. If you are still watching, I really hope you enjoyed, and that I hope you've hit that subscribe button. I am going to be making a January goals video soon, so I hope you stick around for that as well so you can see what I'm going to be up to next year. I'm super excited, 2 months down and just plowing through. Want to get a lot more stuff created. I'm really enjoying what I'm doing, and so I'll talk about that more in that next video. But till next time, guys, thank you so much for watching. Ding, ding, ding. Hit that notification bell, and I hope you have a great year. If I don't see you, Happy New Year. Happy reading, guys!